everybody, welcome back to Simple Art for Adults. My name is Erin and we're going to be working on part 2 of our color along in World of Flowers by Joanna Basford today. It was brought to my attention that my links in the description box for social media weren't working. That's because I had the channel name, my username backward. Those should be working now if you want to check those out. And I also had some questions about the color palette. If you go to Pinterest, I'm going to try really hard to do this without blinding you. If you go to my Pinterest page and you scroll all the way down, you're going to see where it says latest boards or boards, my boards. And then you're going to click on the one that says bright and bold palettes. And once this loads, this is the one that we are going to be actually using. Now we're not going to stick to this palette 100%. This is just going to kind of serve as our inspiration. We're definitely going to get these colors in there, but we're going to be using some different colors along the way too. So I just want to keep that in mind while we're doing this. Alright, so now that that's all finished, let me move that out of the way. We're going to zoom you guys in, and like I said, I did finish some of this off camera, some of the crate. However, I made a slight change to what I was doing, and I wanted to show you that. So as you can probably tell here, let me zoom in just a little more. This part looks a little different from everything else, and that's because I've chosen to go back in with my jasmine that we were using before and go over all the light umber with it. It's kind of lightened it up and made it have more of a woody texture, and I really like it that way. So what I'm going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and finish this section up right now, and then once we're finished with that, I have some new colors picked out for some other things. So let's go ahead and get that taken care of. So I'm going to go back in with my dark umber, and I'm still going to come down here and outline the bottoms. Let me put my little glove on here before I smudge it everywhere. It's Prismacolor, it's going to smudge anyway, but I can do my best to prevent it. So ooh, squeaky chair. I am putting some of this dark umber down along the bottom of all of the sections where I have the chocolate from last time. So it's light umber and chocolate stripes, and then the dark umber is just being used to kind of help differentiate between the two, and that's really all it's there for, just to add some interest. Gonna put some along the little eye there, whatever you call that. I think it's called an eye. Now because I've gone in kind of heavy here with the chocolate, I got to use a heavy hand with my umber, and that's okay. We're not going to put anything else here except for maybe a blender pencil, but I don't even know if that's going to be necessary. And again, this is just to add interest. You can even skip this step if you don't feel like doing it. It's absolutely not necessary. Just something I like to do to throw in a little extra contrast between the two different color areas in the picture. And now that we have that finished, the only thing that I did different than what you saw in the last video is I took my jasmine. Let me get it nice and sharp here. For those of you who are curious, I use this Tagall sharpener and I keep it set to 2. Sometimes I'll even keep it set to 1, but that way I feel like the shorter the point, the less likely it is to break. And just so you know, this is a standard point that I get from my electric pencil sharpener, right? This is what you're going to get with a Tagall. And the shorter this point, the less likely it is to break with the Prismacolor, which is why I prefer it. I do feel like I've got to sharpen it more often, but I don't feel like I'm actually losing more pencil. I feel like when you sharpen it to a really long point, you're shaving away more of the actual pigment of the core to get it that long and that sharp. So when you keep your core, your point shorter and not so long, I think you actually get to use more of your pencil. So I could be wrong, but that's certainly how it seems to me. So I'm using a hard pressure with jasmine and going back in all the lighter areas. I'm not going over the places where I put the dark umber and the chocolate. Those I'm leaving alone. If you get little flecks on the page, don't worry about that. What we're going to do, I think, at the end of this is we can go in and clean it up some with an eraser. But I think what I want to do is duplicate the old paper effect with my brown pastels. So if you get some flecks there, we're going to pretty much cover them up anyway. And I'm very, very lightly going back over one more time with the light umber. This, I'm just using a very light hand, enough to barely tint it. That's it. Because this is a little bit more yellow, I believe, than the rest of it. So I'm just kind of adding more of the brown to make it look like everything else, so it doesn't stand out so far. So I hope everyone's had a good weekend. I've been trying to get to this video all weekend long. It's now Sunday at almost 6 p.m. I have another video that's been processing in YouTube for like 3 hours now, so I don't know. I may end up having to re-upload that one altogether and wait the whole thing out. I wanted to have it up for you guys today, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So that finishes up the crate. So I'm going to take the pencils that we used and put those away. And I have the pencils picked out that we're going to use next. Bear with me. Actually, I'm going to set them down. I'll put them back in the case in just a little bit. Okay, so the next set of colors that we're going to use, and this was printed from Teresa Ivanor's Prismacolor and Polychromos Color Combinations group on Facebook. So if you want to go visit her group and check things out, make sure you read the rules, because they do have some strict rules about posting your work there. So be sure that you take the time to really read it through and go see what all Teresa has to offer if that's something that interests you. So these are the colors we're going to put in our next set of flowers. We're going to do pink rose, hot pink, mulberry, and black cherry, and I think that's going to kind of satisfy that dark pink requirement in the color palette that we chose. So I'm going to sharpen all of this up, and I'm going to show you how we are going to make this happen. Now, we talked in another video recently, I talked a lot about light and shadow. And in this picture, like we explained, we're going to do this kind of like the light is just shining straight down from above, because that's pretty much the simplest way to do this. So the only thing we really need to pay attention to are the parts of this image that have things like in front of it. So that's really the only thing we need to worry about. So I'm going to color this flower, and this flower in these colors, and we may come back to it. So for this part, we're going to need 4 colors. You're going to need pink rose, you're going to need hot pink, you're going to need mulberry, and you're going to need black cherry. Now, if you want to pause the video while you collect the pencils, they are right here, and this is what it looks like. So I'm just going to hold this here for a moment so you can look at the numbers, look at the colors. Alright, and so I try to work my way from left to right, this way I don't make such a mess, but since we're kind of all over the page with this one, I don't think it's going to help a whole lot. So every element of all of these flowers is going to be this set of colors, and I'm going to do them all just a little bit differently. I'm going to start first with my pink rose. I'm very, very lightly putting it on the inside of this, because I'm not really certain how I want to do that outside yet. I don't know if I want to keep it lighter or darker, but we'll figure it out. So I'm just lightly putting the pink rose all along this edge, or all along these petals, just this little inner part of the petal. Let me zoom you in. It might help you see a little bit better. There we go. I don't want to go too much further. It'll end up getting blurry on us. So now that the pink rose is in, I'm going to take hot pink, and I'm going to very, very lightly go over the pink rose, and I'm going to bring it up about 3/4 of the way. I'm going to leave the tip lighter. So we're going to do the hot pink, bring it up 3/4 of the way. We're going to do that all the way around the flower. And we're going to do all these flowers using this, basically the same technique. These 2 flowers will be almost identical, minus this outside part. So I'm hoping by the time I finish recording this video, I'm really hoping the other one will say it's processed. I did a video today about some changes and things that I want to that I want to go through with my channel in the coming months, the direction that I'm wanting it to take now that I'm actually officially back into doing YouTube videos. Excited about ColorTube, excited not only about my channel but others' channels and where they're going. ColorTube is in an excellent place right now, everybody. So much exciting stuff happening, so many new people who are coming out of their shells, starting up their channels. There's going to be plenty to see and do soon. Alright, so now that we have the hot pink in, I'm going to take mulberry, and we're going to bring that about halfway up the hot pink area. Very, very lightly. Basically, what we're doing at this point is just placing colors where we want them. We're going to come back over and layer with everything. We're going to blend it all back out. But for now, we just want to put the colors down, get the transition areas where we want them, figure out where we're going to have all our colors transition in the gradient that we're making. And in order to do that, we need to keep things nice and light. Alright, and then the last color that I have is going to be the black cherry. And this is going to be just a very, very small amount. And this is going to be reserved for the area that tucks up underneath the flower. And these few places where you can see the petal is just kind of like layering over another petal. And I think this is actually the only one. Is this one right here. So I'm just going to kind of outline a little bit, maybe feather some of the color up just a tiny little bit. But we only have a little bit of space to work with here. And 4 colors is a lot for such a small space. So this is just going to be our contrast here, because we're going to repeat this process on every row. So having this nice dark color by the black line will make the pink that we put down underneath of it on this next layer, it'll make it really, really pop. Plus, even though it's just an outline now, when I come back in with that second layer of mulberry, we're going to blend it out just a little. Now, a trick whenever you have a very, very small amount of area to work in, but you still want to make a gradient, and that gradient's going to require several colors. A trick is, instead of pushing hard to blend, you just want to kind of use very small circles and keep going over that same area. Very, very, very small little ovals. Keep coloring over the small area. And that'll help blend it out without having to use such hard pressure that you're going to cause a problem where you can't get your other colors in there. Same thing here, just small little circles right over top of the black cherry with the mulberry. Nice light pressure going over the same areas where you want the color to be darkest, and then just gently fading it outward. So I may go over this area that's right on top of this black cherry. I may make 20 circles on top of it. And as I come out to where it's lighter, I'm only going to make 5 circles on top of it. The more times I go over it, the darker that color is going to be. And because I need a gradual transition, I need to be very careful. Now, once you're more comfortable with this, you can use a harder pressure as you're going over the black cherry, and then lighten your pressure as you come out away from it. That is another option. But if you are new to this and you haven't quite taught yourself how to manage your pressure, you can just use the very light pressure, go over the same area multiple times technique. It takes a little longer, but you'll get the same effect, at least with Prismacolor and with polychromos for certain. Alright, so now that we have the mulberry back in, the next color is going to be the hot pink, and it's just the same thing. We're going to go right back over that, go over it multiple times, and then very light as you come back out to the very, very tip. Same thing here. Lighten the pressure as we come up toward the tip. Well, this is going to be a pretty color combination. Really excited about this one. Took me a while to find the right set of colors for this, because I knew I wanted several colors, but I also knew I wanted to keep it as close to the color palette that I chose as I possibly could. And sometimes that gets tricky. Now with Prismacolors, you kind of get to cheat a little bit because there's 150 pencils. But when you're working with other sets like the Luminance or the Lyra Polycolors, it gets hard because you've only got 72 colors. So sometimes you have to get creative. And now finally I'm coming back with Pink Rose, and I'm going over the tip, and then I'm going to very lightly bring it down over the hot pink. So I'm going to fill in the area that's still white, which won't be much, and bring it down over the hot pink. I'm going to do this on every single one. Now, what we're doing here is we talked about the light. Now, if our light source is directly overhead and it's shining down, everything's going to be illuminated equally all the way around. So the light's hitting this entire flower all the way around exactly in the same place. However, if we look at this flower, we can tell there's some layers to this, right? So this row, this first circle, is laying over the top of the one we just colored. And the middle layer is laying over top of that one. So the only place where it's going to be darker is where those two layers overlap each other, because it's going to block some of that light from getting in there. And that's why we're doing it this way. That's why we're creating a gradient from dark to light. And the bigger the difference between your dark and your light in your gradient, the more contrast you're going to get. And the more contrast you get, the more it makes your image pop off the page. So these are the two colors. This is the very light and the very dark. And then these are the ones that we're using in the middle. Mulberry and hot pink, if it'll focus. There we go. So now basically what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this process on the next layer. But this one's going to be just a little bit different because we don't have quite as much room here. So once again, I'm going to take my Pink Rose, and I'm very super lightly going over everything. Okay, actually let's go ahead and do both of these layers now, since we already have it out. There's no point in dragging it out. Just a very light layer is all we need. All right, then I'm gonna take the hot pink, and I gotta be very careful. I'm just gonna go about halfway. And this is where it really helps to have a nice sharp pencil. I'm going about halfway. And this is going to be difficult for some of you, especially if your eyes are not what they used to be like mine, if your hands tend to shake, because this is a very small area to try to get such a gradient in. So if those things apply to you, if you have issues with your hands or your eyes, my advice to you in that case, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do it, but try to slow down when you do it. Try to just take your time a little. The same thing here, I'm going to bring the hot pink, except this time because we have more room, I'm going to bring it about 3/4 of the way up. You can already see where we're going to go with this. Okay, now we're going to take our mulberry, and I'm going to put just a small amount of the mulberry, very lightly, and that's probably all I'm going to manage to get, is just a small amount of this mulberry. We probably won't even get the black cherry in, but I'll see what I can do. Sometimes you just have to be realistic. If I could get a microscopic point on my pencil, and if my eyes were about 20 years younger, we could probably get all these colors in there, and some of you probably can. If you can and you want to try, go for it. I'm going to try to get just a little bit of it in there. Excuse me. Alright, so black cherry. And if nothing else, I can just put a little bit down here in the little centers of the heart shape in the middle row. Do you guys see what I'm doing there? I'm just putting it like right in here, like right in this little nook, kind of like in these. Because if I put it all over, we're not going to be able to see the mulberry anymore. Like up here, we had more room. I can also get a little bit down in between some of these. So I've got about as much of the black cherry in as I can get without making a mess. So now I'm going to take the mulberry again. Very lightly going to blend out that black cherry. Now we're going to rely a lot on our hot pink here to close this gradient, because it's gonna look like more of a harsh transition right now, just because we don't really have enough room to do a smooth feather. We can't really feather this out. It just isn't going to work. We don't have enough space to do it. But we can take our hot pink and we can go over everything. And that'll kind of help it just a little. And then we come back in with pink rose. That should help us create enough contrast. We've had some dandy thunderstorms today, and I really hope it's done, because that was some crazy wind, and of course I was out driving in it. So now I'm taking my pink rose and I'm going over just the little tips. I'm using a nice hard pressure to close that transition line, to kind of smush the hot pink and the pink rose together so that we don't see that line anymore. And it works like magic because it's Prismacolor, and that's what Prismacolors do. Alright, and so there's our second layer, and we're going to do the third just the same way. So we've already got the pink rose and the hot pink, so now I'm coming back in with mulberry, and I'm going to sharpen it just a little bit and get it about halfway up where we put the hot pink. Very light pressure. Alright, and then we're going to take our black cherry one more time, and we're just going to put a little tiny bit. We don't need very much at all. In fact, I'm just like making little tiny dashes right in the center of each one of the little petals, because I don't want it to look like a circle. I don't want it to look like a geometric circle. I just want it to be noticeable that it's there. Now that the black cherry's in, once again, we're just going to go backwards. We'll take mulberry, go over black cherry, and pull it up. And once again, you can go over the same area lots of times, or you can use a hard pressure at the bottom, very gentle as you come up. Either way you want to do it, whichever way makes you more comfortable. And if you aren't able to get it equal on all of your sections, don't even worry about it. I think flowers tend to look more realistic when they're not 100% symmetrical. That was noisy. Wasn't expecting that, sorry. So we are going to do the hot pink, and we're going over the mulberry and pulling it upward. We have just a little bit of space left for the pink rose. Oh, that's the wrong pink. This one's the right. So we're going to do pink rose. And there we have it. There's the inner part of our flower, and it looks like it's actually layered. And it really wasn't that hard to do. It takes a little bit when compared to just, you know, straight coloring, block coloring, but it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. So I think that what we're going to do is for the outside, we're going to kind of do the same thing, but we're going to skip the pink rose and make it darker. So I'm going to actually take my black cherry, and I'm going to fill in this dot nice and heavy. We're going to just fill in the center of the flower because it's going to help pull everything down inside, make it look like it's coming out. And then I'm going to take my hot pink and I'm going to put it at the tip. So all these little areas, I'm going to put it right at the tip and pull it down. And then we'll come back with mulberry and we'll do the opposite direction down inside, and then we'll use our black cherry to give us the contrast. And you can do this any which way. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You could have used your two lightest colors. You could have skipped the hot pink altogether and gone with the two darkest colors. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just, you know, whatever you think is going to look nicer. Or you could come in and do this section with glitter gel pen if you want. Anything at all will work. Okay, now mulberry. I'll do the exact opposite. Now remember to feather it out as you come up into your hot pink. Light pressure when you're up by the hot pink, heavy down in the corner, and then gradually get lighter as you come up because you want it to meet roughly in the middle and be a nice transition. We're going to come back one more time with our colors to go over it, get rid of any white space, fix any transition lines that we might have. You could even use a completely different color altogether on this part of the flower. Like the pinks and these colors that we did on these flowers, you could have used those. Anything you like. It's a wonderful thing about coloring. You really can't do it wrong. Alright, and then the last thing I'm going to do with this is take the black cherry, and it's going to go just, I'm going to actually sharpen it up a little bit. And it's going to go just in the little dips here, and that's the only place I'm going to put it. Just like that. Alright, and then one more time, we're just going to go backwards. Mulberry. Mulberry to blend out the black cherry. And because I used a harder pressure on this color earlier, it's not going to take me very long to do it. Here we go. Actually, I want to do this one just a little bit better. There we are. And then finally hot pink, and we're just going to blend everything together and make sure it meets cohesively with no transition lines. Oh. These Tagal sharpeners, they do a wonderful job, but they sometimes get the tips too sharp, and you end up with little flecks that break off. Like just like that, or this pencil is just crumbly, one or the other. I am using a hard pressure, but it shouldn't be hard enough to snap the tip off like that, but you know how it is sometimes. I mean, I'm pushing pretty hard, but not hard enough to cause that kind of issue. Okay. And there we have it. There is this flower. Now this one you're going to color on your own. You're going to do it the exact same way as this one, except you've only got the 2 center layers and you don't have to worry about the outside. So just take this off and color this the same as that. That's really it. Alright, but we are going to work on this one together because I do want this one to be the same color. That's one thing about color harmony, is you want to make sure that whatever color you have, you put it in other parts of your page. So we're going to work on this one together also, and we're going to use the same thing. I'm going to take my pink rose first, and I'm going to go over the petals very, very lightly using ovals. Alright guys, actually I'm going to take a break really quick so I can grab a drink because I forgot to bring it over here, but I'll be right back with you. Alright, I am back. I had a nice little break, got a little sidetracked, people started talking to me, but the good news is that I found some awesome pins to put on my Pinterest account. So again, if you guys are interested in finding some really cool color palettes for coloring books, go check out Pinterest, Simple Art for Adults. You'll find all kinds of different boards there. And of course you can repin anything that you like. That's basically what Pinterest is. We just all repin things. Good place to save. You can create boards for different ideas. So like instead of doing what I do and creating palettes by color or by season, you can create them for different things. Like you can do a floral one, you can do a sky one, you can do leaves. You make any kind of boards that you like. Whatever helps you more. So these flowers, I'm not quite sure how exactly I want to tackle them, but we're going to go ahead and get our pink rose down. And don't worry about those little dots there. We can come back in with a white Posca or gel pen, and we can put it right inside of there. I generally just color right over them instead of worrying about coloring around them. Again, I'm not trying to be too meticulous with this. I just want to get the color in. This one I think we may actually do the opposite way. Instead of having it darker at the middle and coming out, we might do darker on the outside and have it come down inside. I'm not sure yet. I don't generally plan these things until I've already started coloring them. We can try to do it like that. Some of these petals might be a little tough to do because they're going to be a smaller area to work with, but I think if we can get all 4 colors in this, we should be able to do it in this flower pretty well too. So let's start with one of the outside petals. Now that we have the pink rose in everywhere, I'm going to take my hot pink and sharpen it up again. And I'm going to put just a little bit down along the bottom. I'm going to do one whole petal first, and then we'll move on and put the color all over. So I'm going to put just a little bit of the hot pink down here. because of course there's going to be a shadow there because of the way the leaves overlap. The leaves, the petals. And I'm going to put some up here too. So we're going to have just that little spot there in the middle for now. I said I was going to finish that whole petal, didn't I? Maybe taking a break wasn't such a good idea. Apparently, it has interrupted my mental faculties. Alright, so now we're going to come in with mulberry. We're just going to finish these two now, apparently. I'm going to come in with mulberry, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit. I'm using light pressure and very small circles and a very sharp pencil. I'm just putting it where the shadow would be because these petals are overlapped. And I'm going to bring it up and do the top of the petal. Still just very light pressure. And then instead of putting black cherry at the top, what I'm going to do so I can differentiate the difference between the dark part of the flower and where the shadows of the flower actually are, I'm only going to put it in places where the petals are overlapping. And I'm basically just going to outline around those areas. Just like so. Because when I come back in with mulberry, let me do this side too. When I come back in with mulberry, we're going to drag that color up some anyway. So as long as we use a nice heavy pressure here with our outline, we're going to get the desired effect. I'm going to put a little right there too because those two petals are overlapping. Alright, so let me come over here and put mulberry here. And then we'll go down and drag that black cherry out. And I'll show you what I mean. And if your colors aren't perfectly even, don't even worry about it. We can fix it later. So I'm just going to use very tight, very small circles. Go over the black cherry with the mulberry, and as you do so, with it like a medium pressure, I suppose, not necessarily really heavy, just a medium pressure and very tight, very small circles, you're basically pulling it upward. Alright, and then we're just going to leave this with the mulberry, and I think that looks okay. So let's go back in and darken up the mulberry. I'm going to kind of take my pencil and outline around the top edge with a nice heavy pressure because this is where it's going to be the darkest. And I'm going to go back because all we're going to have here at the top of the flower is the mulberry and the hot pink. So I can pull it down just a little bit more. And I don't have to worry about it. I'll still have plenty of room. I'm going to do the same thing here. I need to pull this out just a little more. And I'm going to outline along the top of the flower with a nice heavy pressure. Don't need to be too heavy. Medium pressure will do it. And then I'm going to pull it down with a lighter pressure. Alright, that's really all there is to that. Now I'm going to take my hot pink, which is going to be the last color. Well, it's not the last color. It's the last darker color before we fill it in with the pink rose. I'm going to go back over the mulberry. You don't need to use heavy pressure here. Moderate light pressure is really all you need. You're going to pull it down. As you get closer to the center, lighten up your pressure. And the same thing here. We're just going to go over everything at the bottom, but we're not going to pull it out very far. We want to keep this pretty close to the center, just like that. That should be what you're left with when you're done. You want to have a strip in the middle where you still have nothing left but a nice light coat of that initial pink rose. All right, and now that you have that in there, I'm going to sharpen up my pink rose, and we're going to fill in this middle part. We're just going to use a medium pressure. We're going to use small ovals, and we're kind of going to mix these two areas together. Just like so, and that did turn out pretty nice. I like that. Now, if you wanted, you could even use a white here. If you wanted a more milky appearance, you could just skip the pink rose on this last step here and use a white, and that will work too. So you don't necessarily have to do it the same way. I'm just giving you another option. Alright, so now all we have to do is the rest of the petals like this. So before I come back to this, because I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to finish this flower in this video, I want to get more of this color in the picture. So I'm going to come up and put it here on some of these flowers. So I think we will do, let's see, I think we'll do all of these. So I'm just going to take my pink rose and put it at the very top of all of these flowers, just like this. We don't have to get super technical with these because these are really, really easy flowers. They're really, really simple. And the simpler we keep this, here's another little tip for you guys. When you work really hard on one element of your page, like this, like we're going to put a lot of time and effort into coloring this flower. And it's going to look really super cool when we're done. So there's not really much need to go in and put that much effort into every single thing. In fact, if you make everything else simpler, the eye is automatically going to be drawn to the place where you spent the most time making that particular part of the image jump off the page. So you could pick pretty much any flower on here. Like you could have picked this one, right? Could have picked this one and made it the only hot pink flower in the whole thing. And that would be where if somebody picked up this image and looked at it when you're finished, that'll be the first thing their eyes see, is that one bright pink flower. But in this case, I want to keep everything spread pretty well around. And I don't want anything else to be too complicated, because that's going to cause us some issues. It's going to make our focal point not quite so focal anymore. Now I'm taking hot pink and I'm going to go all the way down the flower, just very lightly. And again, we don't have to be too perfect about this. Let me pull this down where it's a little more centered. We don't have to be too perfect about this. There's no need. We're going to spend a lot of time on other elements. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this one too. As you guys can see, I'm just quickly filling it in. Oh, I got one more right here, I forgot. Alright, and then I'm taking mulberry, which will be our darkest color for these. I'm putting it just down here at the bottoms. And then, like everything else, I'm just going to come back and reverse it. We'll come back and blend the mulberry out with the hot pink, and then we'll blend the hot pink out with the pink rose. And that'll be it. hot pink again. Just leave a little bit of space at the top for you to come back in with your pink rose. You want to save yourself some of your lighter area there. You don't have to be meticulous. You guys can see I'm just kind of speeding my way through it just to get it done. This is just going to help balance the picture when we have the colors that we're using in more than one place. Okay, and then I'm going to take my pink rose and I'm going to go back from all the tips and just pull it down, and that will be it. We'll be done with these flowers. Watch the book and not the screen, silly. This way you won't color outside the lines. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this color along, and I know that I'm taking kind of a different approach with it, but I color so slowly that if I stayed on video for the whole entire thing, it's just never going to get done. Alright, so we'll have the pink here, the pink here, and the pink here, so we need to put it in like one more place somewhere. Actually, no, I'm not going to put it anywhere else for now. I'm going to leave it like that. But I am going to come back and work on a few more of these petals just to kind of show you how we're going to do this. So we'll do like one of the ones on this side, and we'll do one of the center ones, and then you guys can do the rest off camera. I see what they mean about this book falling apart now. My pages are starting to fall out. That's a bummer. It's alright. I'll keep it all together one way or another. Okay, so let's come down here and do this one. So we've already got the pink rose in, so all I need to do is put my hot pink very close to where the flowers overlap. I'm going to put it along the top, just like that. Then I'm going to take my mulberry, and I'm going to go ahead and outline up here along the edge, because this is going to be the darkest part. We don't need to put any more layers along this edge. And then I'm going to gradually fade it down just a little tiny bit. I'm also going to put it back around here. Sorry about that, guys. Got kiddos doing things in here. Alright, and then I'm going to come back in with my hot pink. I'm going to mix down this mulberry just a little bit. Alright, I'm going to blend this out. I think I'm going to blend this out a little first. Light pressure. And then I'm going to take black cherry and tuck it down in there. We have a lot less room for this one, so I'm just trying to be very careful and weighing my options here. I'm not going to have much space to put the pink rose back in, but that's okay. Go ahead and put that back in there now. And I'm going to use a nice moderate pressure and kind of smush everything together. It didn't seem to work out too terribly bad. And I got some over into these petals, but that's okay because we're going to go over that with a mulberry anyway. So now I'm going to pick out this petal here, and we're going to show you how to do the outer ones, because you're going to have a little bit more room here. So I'm going to start with my hot pink. And I'm going to bring it down to about there, I think. Actually, I'm going to bring it down a little further. So I'm going to have the center of these flowers, of these petals, the centers are going to be lighter. But see, this is where it tucks in here, so I'm going to put just a little bit there too. And here's another example. Let's go ahead and do this one next to it so I can show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, just like that, down to about there. Then I'm also going to put some over here because this petal is laying on top of this petal. So we're going to have some shadow happening there. And these are things that you might think, oh, I'll never be able to pick all this out. Yes, you will. We were all new at this once. But none of us ever thought about coloring this way at some point until we learned. Or until somebody showed us that we should, or we could, not that we should, that we could think of it that way. And then once you start doing it, it just starts coming to you naturally, and you don't even have to think about it anymore. You just look at the picture and you say, oh, these two overlap, so there needs to be a shadow there. Easy peasy. Right, now I'm going to give myself some hard pressure up here at the very top, because this, again, this is going to be the darkest color. So nice hard pressure along the edge to right about here, and then lighter pressure to pull it down. We're going to blend it nicely into that hot pink so we get a nice transition. And then we're also going to put it along the edges here where those shadows are. And if you want, you can come back in also with a nice sharp black cherry. And you can darken up that shadow even more. This probably isn't necessary, but if you just want to practice, go for it. And now at this point, all I need to do is take my hot pink, pull it back up to where I stopped the mulberry, and then just blend it on down. So I'm leaving myself a little bit of room for the pink rose, or rose pink. What is it? Pink rose? Pink rose. And I'm just going to take pink rose and blend everything on out. I'm not going to take it all the way up into my darkest mulberry. I think that looks really pretty, and when it's finished, it's definitely going to pop. You're going to see how these little highlighted areas really kind of make the flower look like it's folded. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to finish this color off camera. Oh, that's the wrong direction. I'm going to finish this color off camera. I'm going to finish the rest of this flower, and I'm going to finish this flower. And this is what we're going to do in these colors for now. We may come back and revisit these colors again before the end of the color along, but for right now, that's what I want to do. So using the techniques that you learned how to do in this video today, or the ones that you watched me do if you already knew how to do them, go ahead and finish this flower. Now remember, this is just like this one, only without that outer part. And I showed you how to color all of these petals, so you should be able to do those as well without any issues whatsoever. Now for the little places where the petals overlap, I generally will color those darker. So I would just take like my mulberry color and fill them in. And what I might do is take my darkest dark color, the one that I'm using to do the contrast, and put it along the outside edge, just like that. And then come back in with that mulberry and blend that out again. So if you're kind of curious on how you should do those, that's kind of how I do it. The reason I add that little bit of black cherry is just to kind of separate it from everything else, because if you leave it just the mulberry, it'll kind of blend in a little more. You can also do this lighter. You can do it with just the hot pink and the pink rose if you want. You can do it either way. There's no right way to do it. So there you go. There's an example of another one. And just by adding that in there and then pushing it out with the mulberry, you're making it naturally just a little bit darker than everything around it. Alright guys, so don't forget to do your shadows if you want to do them, if you're trying to follow along and make yours look like mine. Just don't forget to watch and see where all these petals overlap. And then go through and add just you're almost outlining. This is almost an outline here where these two petals overlap. You can barely even tell that it's there, but it does make a difference. Alright guys, so I'm going to go finish this up and then I will come back with yet another set of colors and we'll work on more of this. So by the time we're finished, we're going to have all of our pretty pinks done. We're going to have our crate done, and I hope you guys didn't have any issues with that. If you are having any issues with anything, or if you feel like I didn't explain something enough for you, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to help you out as best as I can. Alright guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of the World of Flowers Color Along. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel and you like doing color alongs like this one, don't forget to subscribe, because this is something I'm hoping to get done probably once a month. This one may carry us into June. I'm hoping to get it done in anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks per color along, so we'll see what happens. And once you subscribe, ring the little bell so you get notifications when a new video comes up too. You're going to find links to all kinds of fun things in the description box. My Pinterest account, where you can find all the cool color palettes. My Facebook page, my favorite coloring group on the whole wide internet on Facebook, the Coloring Connection. All that stuff is there, so go down there, have a look around, see what you can find. I am going to let you go from here and go get this finished. And in the meantime, happy coloring.